right, and here is a work in progress, the interior reveal of the 124 Welly. We've done a little bit of custom work to this. So for example, we had third row seating. So, we had that, and then so we had that here, and then we were able to remove it. Check out my video. It was a YouTube short on how I did that. And then, so we applied a little piece of plastic here to cover up the holes. Right now I've just got it painted a silver color, like a silver plate. We may do something else with this. Like I may put a utility box right here if I can find something that works, or we may just go black for a little bit. But let me take you through the interior of this beautiful vehicle. All right, so let's see. The seats were originally the same, just black color, kind of boring. So we went with a kind of a gray look, and you can see kind of what that looks like. So it's kind of like a worn, dusty gray. We'll zoom in. You can see how we picked out some details through there, and it just looks like a well-worn seat. And then center console, didn't do much, just picked out some basic details. Remember, this was all black. Let's look at the steering column. And then I'm really proud of how this turned out. I'm gonna just pull it out here. This was just all one black piece. Now, the nice thing was that the gauges have already been done. Those are really hard to do. And the Chevy symbol was already done, but everything else was just solid black. And so what I did was I applied a little bit more of the gray paint, used Vallejo for this, just some of their basic stuff. Didn't prime any of it, so just Vallejo right over the plastic. A couple of different layers, and then what I did was with some silver, look how I picked out the little individual details on the radio, on some of the trim. Don't go crazy with it, on some of the trim. And then, you get these really nice effects where you can just like gently drag a little bit of silver over like the air vents. And you get this really cool detailed effect. Also dragged it along here just to make that edge a little bit more obvious. Picked out some of the stocks on the steering wheel. I love these old school Chevys with the shifter still on the steering column. But yeah, so far so good. We're making progress here, and I thought y'all would just like to see kind of where we are now. I love the way the seats turned out. Remember, now this is going to be inside the vehicle, so you got to remember that you're going to be seeing it through some glass or through the rest of the vehicle, which is kind of like right there. And then let me show you the engine bay so far. It was pretty nicely detailed, but we just kind of went with some silver, some black, and then of course brown and another color because, if your engine bay is anything like mine, dusty. So these police cruisers get a lot of use, and so that's kind of what the vibe is. But I really like the way the steering column turned out. It looks really nice. The whole front, with the dash and the column and the radio, that just really makes it. You really got to spend time on this part of any model vehicle build customization because there's a lot of opportunity for some detailing. I may go back in here and I may just put a little bit of that green in between on that screen. Maybe not. I'll see what I'm feeling. But the seats look just great. I mean, just great. Really like how these are turning out. And look, just by picking out some like really small details, you really kind of get a nice feel for what this vehicle is going to look like. All right, guys, I'm going to put it back together, do a little bit more work on it, and I'll show you where we end up for today. Bye.